do that. How's that? Did that make a difference? There I am. Wonder why it keeps losing that setting. Never mind. Okay, so let's unmute the game because that should give you some rain, which is about all you're going to hear in the game. And g'day, Scott. Welcome. I hope you are well, sir. I see you got an episode of Asada out. Which is good to see. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I've only just gotten up. Our wheat here is partially ready to harvest when the rain stops. We've got a patch there in the middle where I managed to have an errant worker run away and had to get reseeded. So that's why that little bit hasn't ripened yet. I don't know how far it's got to go. It can't be all that far away. We can go ahead though and get in the correct tractor and get this guy to resume his ploughing, which will be just about here, as I recall. Yeah, I'm real well. The weather's, we're just sort of into the midst of spring here now, and so the weather's not quite as chilly by our standards, which I much prefer. So I'm kind of more like the warmer end of the scale. First waypoint, no, we want nearest waypoint and go. What are you doing? Okay, let's have a look. What is happening with this course? A750, create job, CP field work. Yeah, target position is there, field position is here. All right, generate field work course. That will, 3 headlands, that'll do fine. Start it nearest. Oh, better. There we go. Now we're up and running. So what's your main theme on Asada, Scott? Do you have a particular style of farm you're going for? Is it a world domination play? So that's that one. Okay, looks like he's back on the same headland. That's all right. We'll let him go. He'll muddle around. So this is the next thing we want to do. We can drive up to the fields. There's nothing wrong with that approach. I have that. I've done that on a number of occasions. In fact, quite frequently when I've usually looked at a playthrough by someone like a Mr. Silly P and thought, oh, that looks like a pretty good map. And then lots of them are redos from previous versions of the game. And of course, I have none of the history, so all of the, oh, you know, well, it's different to, or it's the same as in FS19 means nothing to me at all. So I tend to get onto the map and it's like, well, I've got no idea what I should be doing here, so let's just, you know, start there. Can you get out of here? Maybe just... There we go. Now, I need to fix... I actually had a whole month where my steering wheel behaved properly. And now it's back in the mode where it forgets its return spring setting. So it's like driving my first car with no power steering. Right you are. So there we go. Have you done any more pumps and hoses? I'm still waiting for the... I've decided that I probably will get pumps and hoses, but I'm waiting until after we go through the next Giants patch and hopefully a patch from Creative Mesh. For today's live stream, we are going to harvest a field, which is the barley field when it stops raining. I'm just moving the equipment up there now. The ploughing's underway, but the main job for the day is to do a little bit of forestry and clear the area beside where we put the sawmill last time. And make some space. I've decided that in terms of productions, the forestry economy's doing us pretty well. So I'm going to put in both the production that Space Cub mentioned, the MTL diesel production, and also the refinery that does a few more things. Hey, Model House Man, how are you? Welcome to the stream, mate. Glad to have you along. Yeah, so I decided that we'd go for both of those in that industrial park, and also I think it was Cranky last week suggested there may even have been a couple of putting a BGA in there. So that's the plan. We'll need a little bit more cash to buy all of those. That's kind of like a $300,000 or $400,000 outlay, but we will get well on the way because we'll check the prices in a minute. We've got to we've also got some dried boards to sell. They tend to be a mid-year high point on this map, so we've got a year's worth of production sitting there, and I thought it's a good opportunity. I wanted to try the 82 Studios trailers that came out last week, because I find I've got a Flegel flatbed at the moment, but as soon as you go too high, it is pretty unstable on the run over the top of the map. So I thought, well, I'd like to trail two trailers together and see if the Semi will pull that over on its own. So we'll load that up and do that at some point as well. So that's a longish sort of plan, but that's the that's the gist of it, and we'll just see how far we get. Obviously, the rain will stop will stop the harvesting. So what's happening in your neck of the woods, Bottle House Man? I was just running through for Scott. We have a few things on the agenda today, so we can move around. Hey, working and watching streaming. Probably lucky that wasn't a thing when I was in the full-time workforce. If you were here last week, you might have noticed there were trees in that sort of section just between the two parts of the sunflower field up on my right. So I felled and cut all of those just since we were last on, so that I could move the pre-harvester up to the area that we're going to work at today. So we'll just drop this off. Cool. What part of the world? I'm certainly glad to have you here and that you could fit in. Not far from my Griffin, Indiana playthrough. Now, where are we? What am I trying to do? I just sort of set off. Oh, eggs. Let's have a look at prices while it's still raining. I'll stand in the rain. So, eggs. Not a bad price. Do you have much trouble with the tornadoes? That's my main recollection from, I've spent a little bit of time south of there in Texas, but up in Dallas, watching the tornadoes on the horizon while I helped a mate of mine move one day was a bit of an unusual experience for me. Now, where are we here? So eggs are they going to go up? That's the $64 question. Where are we? June, they are not. So we should sell what we have. Okay, and dry boards sitting at, they got a little bit to go, so they might be a next month deal, which will, and I don't have any dry boards free, so that's not a problem. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we, with the changes in the weather, we've started to get well, not tornadoes so much. Cyclones are the big thing in northern Australia, which is basically the opposite of your hurricane. And it looks like I have weeds in my sunflowers. Fairly prolific weeds. How rude. I need the ute. Oh, get off. Yeah, well, some of the storms we're getting over the last few years, particularly in the southern part of the country, seem to be spawning a kind of a tornado-like effect. They don't because the terrain on the east coast is undulating. It's not flat like sort of that northern Texas area. They don't form in the same way, but they kind of create a local version and come with a really heavy concentration of rain, and they're quite destructive. Where have I put that trailer? It's up here. Okay, so we will grab the trailer for this guy to sell some eggs, just in the hope that the rain stops. Logging in the rain doesn't strike me as a particularly enjoyable activity. That's the one we want. Are the tornadoes worse in the summer or I should just ask a straight question, which season do you worry more about them? Model House Man and Scott? I'm presuming there, of course, that there's a time of year that they're more of a concern. How did you not? That's it. That's fine. There we go. Sure, I suppose if you get the right weather conditions for them to form, then to that extent their strength is independent a little, I guess. Because the fact that the weather conditions were right, that was all the trigger they needed. Let's see here, can I do that without falling off the... Activate auto load. There we go. One. You're just not quite in the right spot, are you? Maybe if we back in, that'll work better. Okay. See if we can manage to get you up there without dropping you onto the fuel tank or the silo. Wheels down, wheels down. That piece of slope there just didn't want to landscape when I put it in. Couldn't get it to the shape I wanted. Probably the proximity to the road, but it's just not going to work. Okay, that's looking like a better line. Now we have it. take a few of the pellets out. Takes a little off each one and leaves me with the one that's... Oh no, finally got to it. The one that was right behind. It's still loading. There we go. Yeah, the place I seem to do the worst job is this is in real life, is at the transfer station. When I go to dump a load of rubbish or garden waste or something, you'd think it was the first time I'd had a trailer behind my car. And of course you're on that concrete apron and there's other vehicles close, and you reckon the trailer wants to do the right thing. And in fact, my current vehicle combination is not really ideally suited, so I've got a fairly large single axle galvanized box trailer, and then a baby SUV, which is like the little Honda HRV, and so it's short wheelbase, it's front wheel drive, not a great turning circle. Why are they not loading? And if I get stuck in the wrong spot, I can't get enough to actually move the trailer where I want it. So is it going to pick those up? Why are you not loading? That is really... You're not full, so what is the problem here? Oh, there we go. I'm sure the pressure that you put on yourself is unwarranted when you're backing trailers. Is that going to grab it? No, just can't get it. Oh, there we go. I remember as a kid we used to go to a caravan park at the beach for summer holidays, and the caravan park, when I was sort of a real youngster, so I'm talking sort of 6, 7, 8, was run by an ex-truckie. And so of course you've got all of these city folks who rock up with their their caravans to put them in, you know, for their once a year. They got to put it on a site in between two others, and he would ask every time, you know, do you know what you're doing? Are you comfortable putting the van in there? And of course most people would say, yeah, no worries, Model House man, glad to see you, thanks for dropping in. Closing time's always a good time of the day. So real life does actually take priority over watching me back a trailer. So anyway, this guy would ask everybody whether they could back, and it was one of those classic almost a catch-22 situation, because the driver didn't want to say that they couldn't back the trailer, but most of them couldn't back the trailer, and so rather than take the first embarrassment and just get out cheaply, they would say that they could do it and then get stuck. And then eventually this guy would have had enough of trying to direct them in, and would just instruct them to get out of the car, and he'd just sit behind them. So strange vehicle, strange trailer, he'd drive forward, he'd stick it in reverse, a couple of turns of the wheel, and it'd be perfectly square on the site. It was just really good entertainment on changeover weekend to sit in front of your camp and watch this play out several times up and down the road. Very funny. Okay, so we have eggs sold. We have some cash. I think our ploughing is progressing up there on the hill. It would appear to be. We might just go and see what's happening up there. Why? Oh, you've stopped, but let's put you up here. Nothing to see here. One I missed last week. So you editing tonight, Scott? Okay, let's go. You need to be down the hill, as you'll be required for baling shortly. And then we'll get into some tree work. One a day is hard yak. I recorded the next Adelshoven episode yesterday, or at least I thought I had until I sat down just after dinner last night to edit it and discovered that I had 3 hours of audio footage and no video footage, which I didn't do anything, I don't believe I did anything different for the last 25 times I've done a video. Illusory superiority. Oh, I like that term. So is that we think we're better than we are, or we're worried about being seen to not be better than we are? If that makes sense. That sounds like a double negative. Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's like, I don't know. I really don't understand how it occurred, because the issues that I've tended to encounter in OBS. Ah, right, that makes sense. The issues that I've tended to encounter in OBS are all related to audio. All right, video's been very much, you know, if it's on the screen there, I can see it. Whereas audio, I've had several experiences where the mixer's showing, but I've got no audio. So I'm at a bit of a loss as to, am I? No, yes, I am. That's bizarre. Anyway, it doesn't really matter so much as it's just means I've got to reshoot it again, and it was one of those episodes where there's a bit of field work to be done that you kind of need stages as. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay. Was this an area of study for you? Yeah, what are we going to do? I can't cut those trees with this. And these ones look weeny, but they're not going to get any bigger, so that's just annoying. Okay. So... yes. Okay, so we can pull you back out of there. Now, as I go through and do this, if there are things that I'm doing that make no sense, I am far from an expert in this activity. So if there's a better way to do it, let me know. I've kind of figured out a set of things that seem to work a little. I don't find the controls for the head here particularly intuitive. It doesn't help that I've only got one joystick either. I seem to, I'm sure there's a name for it as well, but I seem to have a memory problem with my fingers remembering which key does what. So I'm looking at the screen and my brain's saying, oh yeah, you need to move the head over there. But do you reckon I can remember which key? Oop. If we get a few of these round, we'll stop doing that. And I'm going to get tangled up on a log. There we go. If we make a space, it'll get easier because there'll be less camera strikes. Now you go back there. Okay, come in. No. And we're going to just cut you there. These are only weeny little logs anyway, so it'll be interesting to see. They don't have far to go. Yeah, so I've got the side panel, and so there's one joystick on there, and then I use the keyboard like that situation. For the other axis. So I get the job done, and I'm getting, oops. Oh, right, line it up on the tree. These little trees, we're making a space, but it doesn't feel particularly rewarding. You can go down and cut. Yeah, I was trying to explore the other day whether it was possible to get a an old iPad to just be a button box, and because that would be more versatile potentially than the side panel, but it, not surprisingly, there are some tools to do that, but it requires substantially more investigation. I think that's, at least in part, the basis behind the sim dashboard stuff that Farm Sim Guy does, which looks terrific, but I'm not quite at that point. But there's a stump there. Be interesting to see if in the Platinum Edition, in this scenario, small trees regrow. Because this would be a really cool map if the trees weren't, like, even more cool if the trees weren't static. So these ones here, you leave them for a couple of seasons and they turn into big ones. Where are we here? Oh, horseplay blocked by an object. Let's go and see what you're doing up there. Just at the end of the... How'd you get out there? You're supposed to be in the field doing the headlands. Rightio. So we have, oops, let's hit the correct button. Yeah, absolutely, dock is pay. It's like, I've got no idea how you ended up over there. So nearest waypoint.